There's a very subtle point that is trying to be made through these scripture readings today. I've been contemplating it for decades because every year we come back to this. The repetition of ritual and the repetition of study and spiritual path is for a very good reason, because we can only understand things according to our actual experience, our ability to perceive them. So if we only study once, if we only read scripture once, if we only hear a ritual or participate in something once, then our understanding of it has a necessary ceiling based on our capacity to understand. So when these thoughts and ideas are presented to us by advanced saints or God-realized masters, they're presenting a perception of reality that we have to grow into, not just in the course of one lifetime, but in the course of many incarnations. So we're endlessly restless, looking for variety, want it expressed in new ways, but the actual power of spiritual life is to stand in one place and change your perception. It's always important to realize that if a master is in the same room with us, they're looking at a very different reality than we're seeing. That we don't have to go somewhere else to have a state of realization. We have to go someplace within ourselves. And so in the course of this grace and divine love and wisdom, which is what Swamiji is listing out here, he talks about each one is an experience. It's not a principle, that the principle comes after the experience. And it's not something that we have to force ourselves to do. It's just the way that we perceive reality. It's impossible for us. I mean, we don't go trying to breathe underwater. We don't try to put our hand into a flame. We don't try to eat broken glass, because the experience of doing all those things would be nothing that we would want. We don't have to say, well, the principle is we never eat broken glass. Okay, I will always try to conform to that. So the principle, it's not the principle of divine love, it's the experience of divine love. And then we become something else. And having had that experience, when someone comes up to you, even with wrong energy or angry energy or an attempt to mistreat us, which happens all the time, we don't have to force ourselves to try to be kind, because we're looking at our own self. We've had this experience of our oneness in God, and so what we feel is a spontaneous sense of compassion. Now, of course, these all become rules afterwards, but they become rules in an attempt to put us in alignment with that which will make us happy. This is all about happiness. It's not about doing the right thing for any other reason except that it will bring us what we all really want. There's so many lines in this particular reading. Grace is the power to rise spiritually. It's just a very interesting phrase. I remember some cartoon that I used to watch as a child or saw as a child. I don't really even remember, but it had to do with a diving bell, which is a submarine, I guess you would call it, except in the cartoon form, it was always this diving bell. And there was some strange character who would go inside it, and then you'd go way down deep into the ocean. Subsequently, there were lots of movies made about submarines. And of course, the theme of the submarine movie, no matter where it starts, is always the point at which they're at the bottom of the ocean and it springs a leak, invariably. And then everybody runs around in the very small area screaming, and the water is coming in, and everybody's extremely upset, as you can well imagine. And both of those images in my mind of, I don't know what submarine movie it was I saw, but I mean, it was claustrophobic just to watch it. I don't know how they filmed it with everybody all squinched like this. But the whole force of the diving bell, the individual one, is there is this tremendous energy of the ocean that's trying to break through the wall, isn't it? And then this counterforce, which is the steel, whatever it is, the tube that's under the water, is this counterforce, and it's pushing as strong as it can against this. But sooner or later, it springs a leak in the movie, and it starts pouring in, and the force of it pouring in panics everybody on the inside, because things are about to change. And this has come to mean for me, and it has for many years, we are existing in a universe in which the divine is trying to love us. It's trying to overwhelm us with the awareness that this world is not what it seems. And we are extremely determined to protect our little individuality and all the things that it wants, and all the things that it is absolutely sure it must have, or it won't be happy anymore. It needs these certain sensual experiences. It needs this certain amount of money. It needs the power that money gives. It needs this beautiful body, all these different things. And we're all very nervous that those things will be taken away from us, whether it's on the conscious level or deeper than conscious. I'm amazed, still amazed, after all the years that I've been on the spiritual path, how if I'm still on the highway and somebody is driving and I think that they're, if I'm driving or someone else is driving, and there's just this moment where I'm not sure whether we're going to be safe, it amazes me every time that I react. Like that, just like that. When we had the earthquake here in 1989, a long time ago, I was inside the building downstairs, the building in our community over here, which are these wooden buildings, which are good for earthquake because they go like this. Not so good for the human inside of it when it's going like this, which in that case, the human was me. And because it's a downstairs units, those of you who know that's where we were living then, and it was possible just to run out of the building. I'm in the building. Earthquakes do not schedule themselves. You're just there, and 1 second before it's happening, it's not happening. So then it happens. This, I love when something breaks, you say, it worked yesterday. Yeah, of course it worked yesterday, because it wasn't broken yesterday. Now it's broken, right? So 1 second before the earth starts shaking, it's not shaking, which of course is startling, to put it mildly. So you're sitting in the building, it's perfectly fine, and then all of a sudden it starts doing this. And my little logical mind says, the problem is the building. I know I live in California, I know the concept of earthquake, but this was the biggest one I've ever been in. At Ananda village, every so often you'd look outside and something would be shaking. But I never had an experience like this one. So I ran right outside. And I did not run outside thinking, oh God, whatever you want. I ran outside screaming. I'm not proud of it, but that's exactly what I did. Just making a very large noise as if that would make a difference. Like, where does this come from? That if I start yelling, the earth will stop shaking. I got outside and discovered that the problem was not the building. The problem was the whole world. The entire world that I lived in, the trees and everything, and the swimming pool came out like a tidal wave over the edge, a great deal of it. This is like your brain has no idea what to do at that point. Some of my friends went, Om Guru, Om Guru. I did not. And I've thought about it all these decades since. My first response was not, oh, just whatever you want, God. My first response was like those poor captains in the submarine when the water starts coming in. Something is breaking through my carefully constructed, utterly false, sense of security. And the water is streaming in, and I'm just going to try to plug all the holes. This is not the right way to behave. This is not really helpful to us. It has to be, and actually, I've made it as a practice, and I've made a little. I haven't mastered the highway yet. The highway I'm still terrible at. But I've made it an actual practice not to be startled when unexpected things happen. Most of the time, when we have some gigantic issue that we're trying to deal with, like, will I accept the will of God? I mean, that's a pretty big issue. If God surprises me by breaking today what wasn't broken yesterday, am I just going to say thank you? Or am I going to run around like the poor captains on the submarine just trying to plug all the holes? So I've made it a practice to try not to be startled. And I'm still very bad at sound, and I'm bad on the highway. But if I walk into a wall or any sharp thing like that, I'm very pleased with the fact that I don't panic. You know? It's a small thing, and I'm not recommending it because it's any great accomplishment. But if we want to make major changes, we can't just start with the big one. Every weakness that we have within us manifests all the way through. And you start chipping away from the bottom. You start chipping away from where it's the same size as you are, or just a little bit bigger. And then it becomes a habit, because we always run true to form. Now, in the Gita commentary today, it's such a magnificent one. And it says, "Thou art precious to me." And Swami comments later, it doesn't say, God says, "I love you." That's how we tend to think of it, don't we? It's that I want to be loved. Somebody's going to say, "I love you." And then there's me making this action, and then there's the other, and they're receiving it. And yes, of course, that's a whole lot better than a lot of other things people say to each other. And that's a very, very good start. But in our relationship to God, if we're thinking, God loves me, the obvious thought that comes after that is, He doesn't. Or He loved me today, but now I'm broken. Or I was good, and so He loved me. And whole religions, are made up of this. This is what Judaism had fallen into, and which was why the Essenes, who are the ones among the Jewish people who were holding the true principles of Judaism, that's why they attracted the avatar, and the avatar was Jesus. Because the religion had become, these are the things you have to do in order to please God, and then a corrupt priesthood became the ones who could tell you whether you were pleasing to God or not. And incidentally, if you paid this and bought this and helped in this and did what I wanted and supported my pet project, then what do you know? God is even more pleased with you. It was a corrupt priesthood, and Jesus came in to say, God is your Father. God is not your judge. And it has nothing to do with all of these man-made rules that are presented as divine principles, that you have to do this and you have to do that. That's why Swami is saying, this is an experience. This is a revelation. This is a breakthrough of this carefully constructed, separate little world. And there is no I and me. It says you are precious to me. Isn't that an extraordinary word? Precious. What does that mean? That means that we are so valued just as we are. And elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna puts it like this, and he starts telling Arjuna, his disciple, Krishna, the Lord, he starts telling him, these are the things that you should do. Everything you do, you should give it to God. You should be free in the Lord. And if you can't quite do that, then whatever you're doing, just think about me a little bit. And if you can't do that, just every once in a while, remember. And then it says, if even in this thy faint heart fail thee. And this is the poetic translation because it didn't come in English, but thy faint heart. This is what we're working with. What is the heart? The heart is about love, and the heart is about courage. Just having the courage to begin to let down that carefully constructed steel cage in which we live, in which the power of the divine love is constantly trying to break through, and we're working just as hard to keep it. Because what will happen if? What will happen if I won't get to be myself anymore? I won't get to have the things I want. I won't get to run my own life. I'll be swept away. And it's right, you will be. There's no other way to put that. We are so confined, and we're so proud of our confinement. Swamiji talked once about what he called the funnel effect. And he said, it's not a very grand statement, the funnel effect. But he was talking about we ourselves are a reverse funnel, which is our true nature goes out literally to infinity, just in a line like that without a boundary. And we condense all of that into this tiny, tiny little opening where we let just a little bit of that energy come through, and we fight so hard to stay confined. Because we're afraid. It's very simple. Because really bad things happen. People die, wars come, accidents happen, terminal diagnoses are offered, and people we love change. Or we change. And all that security that we've worked so hard, we have to surrender it. And we're more than startled, It takes us a lot longer than a few seconds to recover. It takes us many incarnations. That's why God says simply, it's not even that I love you, it's that you are precious to me. You are precious to me. And in the other verse that I'm saying, where Krishna is telling you all these things that you could do, if in the end thy faint heart fail thee, then bring me your failure. Now, if we really believed that, if we really experienced how precious we are to the divine, why would we ever worry about anything? I mean, it's not that another is kind to us. It's that this is who we are. Our very consciousness, we can't separate ourselves. I've been hearing I heard Swami Kriyananda say this to us, to me, to crowds of us from 50 years ago. And I would see the passion with which he would try to make a little opening in that steel, egoic, this is me energy. And he just tried to burrow in and start letting some of that power to rise spiritually. You see, that's the grace of God. That understanding of the grace of God, it changes everything. And in this sense, you see, it's never been our own power. It's not that we finally get ourselves organized enough that we get to walk up the mountain on our own. It's finally we get ourselves organized enough to take down that steel barrier, and then the ocean just moves us. It just moves us. I remember being in India, one of the trips that we took there for 20-some years. We would go every year or two, taking a group, as Sai Ganesh has been doing lately. And we were heading for, I think it was Badrinath, and there's a Prayag, I think they call it, where two rivers come together. Deva Prayag, like this. Two huge rivers come together right here. I love India for so many reasons, but one of them is that the lawyers don't run it. Some of my best friends are attorneys, so I have to say that. That's okay. I like lawyers as a breed. They're good people. However, in the United States, if there's the slightest possibility that one person without a brain could actually hurt themselves, then all the rules are put up to prevent it. India, either because they haven't gotten around to it yet, or because they believe in karma, it's different. So you're right here, where these two rivers are coming together in the most astonishing way. which in the US you would probably be about 100 yards back from it. You'll be able to look at it with a special machine. You can walk right to here, right to there, and there it is. And then there are these cement steps that you can walk down, and then you can step where these two rivers are going to try to kill you. That's what they're going to try to do. And you have this little chain, and you hold on to this little chain. Fortunately, the first time we went there, we had a couple of really big, strong people. I mean, the whole thing just, oh my. So we got a couple of really strong people to stand on the little platform and hold people so that they wouldn't die, which is, I always said to people, we used to go to Kashmir first, and everybody would get sick in Kashmir. We found out that the water, the same water that all the sewer went into, was being bottled and sold back to us. So people got kind of sick. But I would say, wait till, if you're going to die in India, wait till we get to Varanasi. Because Shiva will liberate you in Varanasi, and you'll just waste your time dying up here in Kashmir. Just don't do that. Just hang on, a few more days, we'll be in Varanasi. So anyway, I'm standing at where these two rivers come together. And it would be so easy, just so easy, to take an extra step. And that river would just, like that. I wouldn't have a chance, just like this. And I'm not suicidal, I never have been in this life. But it was very interesting just to contemplate it. Because the second this body stopped working, you're in the astral world. And you know, Master, in one of his wonderful whispers, I don't remember where it was, and also in conversation, we're so freaked out by so much that happens on this planet. And I believe we're going to get a lot more freaked out because I think a lot more is going to happen on this planet. And we get so agitated about it. Master said, as soon as you step out of it, you see it was just a dream. I mean, that's the image that we use, dream. I've had nightmares. Have you ever had nightmares? Everybody's had a nightmare, at least one. Some have many. And when you're in that nightmare, it is an absolute nightmare. That's what the word is, isn't it? And there's no past or future. When you're having a dream, you're not having an idea that, well, dreams last approximately 8 minutes. You have no concept. You are in the nightmare. And then you wake up. Then you're not in the nightmare. Where was the nightmare? And Master tries to tell us that the apparent suffering in this world, the taking away of what we think we have to be happy, it's just a dream. And no, I'm not speaking to you from his perspective, but I'm speaking to you from staring at his perspective for a long time and just a drop or two breaking through that shell and beginning to realize, is this force that's breaking through my enemy or is it my friend? You know, and even being pushed up against that, which frightens us so much. You know, those submarine guys are not thinking, oh yeah, we'll just go snorkeling. You know, they're thinking that something really awful is going to happen. And God pushes us in this world. He pushes us. We're precious to him. And he pushes us. Isn't that, it's like, where do you put that? Where is the truth of this? You know, this is all a dream. Thou art precious to me. Remember this, you know. Everything else is just incidental. The only thing that's lasting and enduring here is that. And when we fail to remember that, Divine Mother says to us, bring me your failure. I'm as in awe of this reality. More than that, I mean, where do we even start? How do we live? Which way is forward? You know, these are the only questions that matter. everything else disappears. And if it doesn't disappear today, it'll disappear tomorrow. And if it's not broken today, it'll be broken tomorrow. And will we just run in and out of the building looking for the safe place? Will we run around trying to plug the holes? Or will we learn to let it come to us? Grace is the power to rise spiritually. All we have to do is get out of the way. And of course, it takes everything that we have, to be going down the freeway and thinking that that car is actually going to hit me, and just being able to say, all right, Divine Mother, if that's what you want, to contemplate the comfortable life that we have not going on the way it is, to see people that we love or people that we don't even know on the other side of the world. Swami told me many years ago when I asked him this question, you have to practice when it's easier. Now is the time to start. Now is the time to seek that experience of divine love. Seek that experience of grace. Seek that experience of wisdom and truth, so that when God calls our name to take us someplace we didn't choose ourselves, we can say, yes, Lord, I know everything comes from Thee. There was a disciple of Master, Rajasi, Ananda, who was Master's spiritual successor. And he was a self-made millionaire. He was a powerful man. He was a fully realized being. And Master would often say to him, remember where your power comes from. And Rajasi, just like a little child, would say, I know, sir, it comes from you. That's who we are. We are children of the divine, most precious to our Divine Mother. Do our best, and if our best is very small, then bring God our failure, and know that we will be loved no matter what. Bless you all.
For just a few moments. Now we'll have music.